I'm Kevin Morrison. I am typically sitting in a chair in Nevada. I'm actually sitting at Stanford University today, but that's me. And I'm going to go around the room and ask y'all to just give a quick hi to John, if you will. Al, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, Al Grimet. I'm in Mill Valley and involved in some of our city efforts here and lots of grassroots groups.
Yay. And then, the next one in my view is Bruce Ackerman, who is just a big letter B. I feel like I should be playing bingo. Go ahead, Bruce.
I'm sorry, my camera just doesn't seem to work these days. I don't know why.
That's okay.
But yeah, I'm town of Fairfax, and also I'm actually calling in right now from our farm up in Mendocino, which is completely off grid. So
nice. Yay. All right. And then Anne Christine, you are the next in my view. It's like you were reading my mind and came online. Go ahead. Say hi.
Hi, my name's Anne Christine Strugnell. I live in San Rafael. I'm involved in a bunch of different communication roles with nonprofits, but I'm very interested in building electrification. That's one of my main focuses.
Yay. And speaking of building electrification, Miles, you want to say hi?
Sure. Hey, everyone. John, I was introduced to you a ways back by Courtney Richardson over at Tesla. Anyway, you and I spoke, but I was very excited to see you speak. I live in San Rafael, largely been working on multi-family housing EV charging issues here in Marin. So that's been my focus, but very interested in the V2G, V2X world.
Fantastic.
All right. And Kathleen Gundry.
Kathleen Gundry, San Anselmo Climate Action Commission, and fresh off the last meeting with the Marin Green Home Tour.
Yay, we love that.
So we're excited about your product for the Marin Green Home Tour.
Yay. John Lindsay, say hi.
John Lindsay, San Rafael. I'm new to this group, relatively speaking, and I'm pretty curious about this home energy audit conversation. And Kathleen, thank you for sending along information, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about that when we get an opportunity.
Yay. And then the last two are Jody and then Marilyn. Jody, say hi.
Hi. Jody, Chair of the Fairfax Climate Action Committee and 350 Marin.
Yay. And Marilyn.
Marilyn Price. I'm here in Mill Valley. I work with Al in Sustainable Mill Valley and other organizations too.
Fantastic.
I
know Marilyn from Trips for Kids, which is another great organization. So.
Yay!
This is the one I gave for the Passive House conference in November, and it's called Zero Carbon Living and Transportation Plus Energy Systems and Creating a Sustainable Future. Can everybody see it all right? Okay, good. So when I started to write this or put together this presentation, I woke up and I saw this article that said Earth thundering toward a planet unfit for humans. And, it's unfortunately the place that we're at. We're at a place of a lot of tipping points, Category 5 hurricanes and cyclones at unprecedented rates, extreme weather and fire events all over the world, extreme ocean events with mass coral bleaching and phytoplankton decline. Phytoplankton produces 70% of the oxygen we breathe. So we don't want to lose our phytoplankton because of ocean acidification. Catastrophic wildfires, basically we are in the sixth mass extinction event which is caused by humanity, unfortunately. And I don't need to go through this in depth with any of you because you all get it. So that's the why. And then basically, so how do we solve the problem? What do we do to get past this and through this troubling time? So for me and this organization that I gave presentation to, Passive House, they focus on super energy efficient buildings, all electric, of course. And it's more important, really, I think, to get past net zero and go beyond net zero energy. So the ways that you do that is efficiency first with site orientation, proper orientation, positioning of the structure, the rooms within a structure, strategic location and sizing of windows, shading and solar gain strategies, all of these are passive house principles up here, and generous and quality fill of insulation. You eliminate thermal bridges that transmit heat and cold through a wall, and you use energy recovery ventilators that basically bring in fresh air from the outside because you have a very airtight building, and you filter it and you exhaust the interior air using a heat recovery ventilator, which keeps the heat or cool in the building. Passive site and solar design, building design, and passive house methodology and certification. Then add in renewable energy and energy storage systems. Solar, there's some problems, pros and cons with each. Solar needs an energy storage system to utilize it adequately. Wind, same thing, it's intermittent, needs energy storage. Hydro is a great way to store energy and produce energy with pumped hydro systems. And geothermal, which is constant, but it's not really as scalable because you can't do it just anywhere. And then there's some pros and cons to, this is kind of in the way of the presentation. There we go. There's pros and cons to grid scale energy storage and also to distributed energy storage. Some of the pros for grid scale is there's an economy of scale. It's easily dispatchable. It can replace the need for peaker power plants, can be located at peaker plant sites, and can use existing distribution lines. Some of the cons, though, are that it's centralized, so there's more single points of failure in the system. It's not a distributed solution, so you do have to transmit that energy, and it uses what we are now seeing are very vulnerable legacy transmission lines. It's not moving forward. So distributed energy storage has some pros and cons as well. You have reduced need for transmission infrastructure. It's easily dispatchable using virtual power plants, which also replace the need for peaker power plants, provides resilience within a community, and you can export to the grid using existing distribution lines. Some of the cons are it's more expensive than centralized storage, and it's also disruptive to existing IOU business models. And that's only a negative because they, in turn, resist this change because it's disruptive to their business models. So now we're going to talk and get into the emergence of bidirectional EV technology. And one of the great things about this is it's less expensive per kilowatt hour to have a battery on wheels than it is often a stationary battery. Like a Nissan Leaf is 60 kilowatt hours of energy storage. And to get that storage in, say, Tesla Powerwalls, you're looking at $70,000, $80,000. So you're paying about half that for a Nissan Leaf. You then have energy storage on wheels that has many times the capacity of stationary batteries, and you're able to move that energy around and use it where it's needed. It actually enables what I refer to as mobile microgrids. So you can actually move this energy around and share it without using the utilities wires. And it also enables a really massive capacity of distributed energy storage, and also greatly reduces or eliminates the need for expensive stationary storage batteries. Is everybody familiar with virtual power plants? Should I go through this? Does everybody know what that is, or should I go through it quickly? I think.
Yeah, tell us a little, John, please.
All right. Okay. All right. So virtual power plants offer a range of financial incentives and benefits to households in return for joining a virtual power plant. Thus far, these have been primarily with stationary batteries. Tesla's done it a couple of times. And the incentives can include discounted solar and battery systems to participants, or lease-to-own plans, reward payments, lowered electricity tariffs, backup protection for your home, and credits to your electricity bill each time you dispatch energy to the virtual power plant and allow them to take some of your stored energy. They entail distributed energy generation generally, so your own solar and your own storage, your own energy storage. and then a home energy management system that can communicate with the grid and dispatch that energy, send it to the grid when the grid wants it. And very soon you'll be able to use bidirectional EVs as part of this process. So talking to the capacity of this, California currently has about 1.5 million EVs. So if you figured each one of those EVs has about 60 kilowatt hours average, which is probably on the low side, that is about 225 times the capacity of the largest grid scale energy storage plant in existence today at Moss Landing. By 2035, California is expected to have 12.5 million EVs. So if you use that same number, 60 kilowatt hours per vehicle, that's almost 2,000 times the largest grid scale energy storage in existence today. And it's the beauty of that is that, let me back up a little. So if not everybody's going to dispatch all of their vehicle battery, right, to support the grid, but even if you use only 10% of that capacity, it's still almost 20 times the largest grid scale system in existence. And all of that energy is widely distributed where you need it in homes and communities throughout the state. Speaking to the demand response for the grid, California's highest peak demand was 2022, was 51,426 megawatts. So if those 12.5 million EVs are dispatching only 10 kilowatts, 10,000 watts to the grid during high peak demand times, that's 125,000 megawatts. So it's almost 3 times California's highest peak demand ever. And the more systems there are, the greater the capacity gets. So V2G represents an ever-expanding capacity for demand response in the state. So this, a lot of people are like, it's hard for people to get their head around this. And people are like, well, wait a minute, this is science fiction. This isn't really happening, but it really is happening globally today. There's already over 120 operating projects that are doing this globally. And this is a database where you can go to see where they are. The important thing to make this happen is grid interoperability. And a lot of these projects have happened in the past, and the standards for grid interoperability weren't fully developed yet. But now the grid communication standards are ready through the ISO 15118 interoperable CCS DC bidirectional charging standard. And these standardization initiatives will ensure operability with the grid for grid-tied V2X systems. They were developed by a company called Sharin, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. But they're standards that were developed for bidirectional EVs and energy management systems and EVSE equipment, regardless of the type of connector used. So CCS, NACS, or CHAdeMO. And the availability of these standards creates a clear path for EV and EV charger manufacturers who support bidirectional charging for existing models as well as for future models to be released. So the idea would be the ideal solution that we at Decibel support is a bottom-up solution where homes and businesses become sort of nano grids that can isolate from the grid and power themselves. And these can expand organically as funding and as incentives allow. It includes solar plus energy storage in smaller stationary batteries, but more importantly, within bidirectional EVs that, as I said, come at a lower cost per kilowatt hour often, depending on the vehicle you buy. So these are connected to the grid, but can operate independently as needed for resilience. And what this really represents is power to the people. So if you do this in tandem with larger community or grid scale renewable energy systems, you can really start to create a system that can become a zero carbon community-wide system. And the ideal way to do this would be with daytime workplace and home EV charging systems that is utilizing that peak solar generation during the middle of the day store it in the EVs, and then in the evening you discharge from those EVs to your home and to the grid to help support the grid. So this gets into where I introduced Decibel. I think you're all pretty familiar with the system, but it's, as I said, the first North American certified and affordable and also universal DC bidirectional home charger. By universal, I mean it's EV agnostic, so we can work with any EV company that will work with us. And they aren't all yet, but we've partnered with Volvo and Nissan, and a major announcement on a major North American EV manufacturer will be coming very soon. And I think really once this starts to happen, all the EV manufacturers are going to jump on board because it adds so much to the value of owning an EV that they're all going to want to offer it, hopefully. In addition to being a bidirectional charger, it's a 2-port charger. So one of the ports is level 2 AC, and the second one is DC and bidirection. So what that means is you can directly charge your EV directly from your solar panels very quickly at a mile per minute, sort of like a level 2.5 charger, we could call it. And then you can use your EV to power your house and export to the grid through that one bidirectional DC cable. It's also includes a stationary battery management element, and we've partnered with LG Energy at this point. We're open to other high voltage batteries, and they need to be a high voltage, like 400 volt range battery, because that's what EVs have in them, and that's what our inverter is set up for. It also includes a very elegant home energy management system called Orchestrate that optimizes and prioritizes energy flows within your home. All the energy flows from your solar, your battery, to and from the grid, to and from your vehicle, etc. And it's SunSpec certified for grid export and interoperability. The great thing about this technology, one of the great things that I think, is that it's offered at about the same cost as a comparable solar inverter alone. So you get essentially all that additional capability for bidirectionality from your vehicle for free. Has a wonderful user interface that has a lot of different capabilities. Can show you what's happening in your car, your stationary battery, your home power. It has a weather predictive element, so if there's a storm coming, it will recommend that you might store more energy and then rather than export it. And it actually has a social interface where you can gamify it and compete with other people for energy savings. Another screen will show you exactly what's happening in your vehicles, whether they're discharging, charging, what their state of charge is, etc. Another screen will show you your CO2 savings and your monetary savings or profit. And then this is the weather predictive screen right here. This is a screen that kind of shows everything that's going on within the systems, your vehicles, your home, your solar, what's happening either to or from the grid, and a stationary battery if you choose to have one. This is that larger screen again that kind of shows, you see the arrow on my screen, my cursor?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so this will show what's happening, like this vehicle is discharging to the grid here or to the home. This one is charging from the grid. This is what your home is using in kilowatts currently. And so this is the live consumption, what the vehicle charging is doing plus the home. And this will down here will show, we'll have little dots that go along and show what's happening with your solar, how much it's producing, whether you're importing from or exporting to the grid. And again, what's happening with your battery, if it's charging or discharging, and its state of charge. So this was called the R16, and now we've given it a more personal name. We call it the Ara, and it's a home DC fast charger, twice as fast as a level 2 Tesla charger currently. Provides the bidirectional power for your home, allows you to set your priorities in the vehicle, whether it be range, carbon savings, or revenue. And that's, everything within your home, all the whole home energy ecosystem. Helps you save money by peak shaving. And just by peak shaving alone, you can save up to $1,200 annually. And it provides bidirectional power for grid support services. So you can monetize your vehicle by participating in a virtual power plant that I touched on earlier, while your EV sits idle 90 to 95% of the time. There's a new pilot program. I believe this is in Boston, that is providing about $3,000 per vehicle annually. And Fermata is actually the aggregator and the hardware provider. So an example of the aggregation, what you can make from these, I'll touch on a program that's going on in Hawaii right now called the Battery Bonus Program. They're actually just ending it because it was, I think they said it was too lucrative. So they're rolling it back, as is happening with a lot of things. Provided a one-time payment of $850 per kilowatt hour that you will commit to use from your battery. So let's say you have a Nissan Leaf and you commit to using 20 kilowatt hours daily. That would give you a $17,000 upfront incentive. In addition to that, they pay you $5 per kilowatt per month of that committed discharge. So $5 times 20 kilowatts daily was another $100 a month. And the program runs around for, I think there's a little bit left in Maui, which I hope to take advantage of. So for 10 years, that would be another $12,000. So your total incentive out of that program would be $29,000. And you could buy a used Nissan Leaf in Hawaii for between $8,800 to $29,000. So it essentially pays for your vehicle. Another possibility that I'm looking at, and I probably will be utilizing for rebuilding, we lost my partner and I lost a home in Lahaina in the fires. So what I plan to do is bring in a tiny home on wheels, such as this one, that this one in particular comes in looking like a container and then opens up and expands and triples in size. And what I plan to do is add some solar to it, like a solar canopy, bring our bidirectional inverter technology to use for the solar, buy a used Nissan Leaf, and I plan to power not only the tiny home on wheels, but my entire construction site before the grid is back. So an important thing that I try to stress as we electrify is that it's important to kind of be future ready, especially in new homes. I've developed this electrification document in tandem with industry experts in electrification, energy storage, and bidirectional EV technologies, such as EPRI, 2050 partners who are consultants to the grid in many locations, Decibel, my company, Nuvi, who is an aggregator of energy within bidirectional vehicles, and then Charan also, who developed that ISO 15118 standard. So the document, I call it electrification, energy storage, and bidirectional EV ready. It's the Community Energy Resilience Document, or CER document. And it has 4 pages. The first page is mostly definitions of nanogrids and microgrids and their functionalities during normal operations and emergency operations. Second page kind of goes into the electrification of appliances, the wiring that's required for them, for appliances, for being solar ready or future solar ready, including using smart panels and breakers, which can help reduce the loads in your home so that your whole home can remain backed up during an outage. And then also energy storage system ready, and then bidirectional EV ready as well. On the third page, there's a chart where you can fill out with your electrician your wire lengths, the cost per foot, and kind of get a total of what everything is going to cost you to fully electrify. And then also over here for energy storage costs and bidirectional EV ready. And then there's a diagram here of kind of a basic home, which kind of shows where you'd want to place these things in order to minimize your wire runs and reduce your costs as you wire. Oops. So basically, after many years of technological development, experimentation, policy reform, and standardization initiatives, the bidirectional EV and V2G market is ready to enter a fast-paced multi-year expansion period. And what this will enable is simultaneous decarbonization of the built environment, transportation, and energy sectors, which represents about 70% of global emissions together. That's it for my presentation. So,
Wow. John, that is awesome. Thank you for all of that. Let's get straight to questions because I know there are going to be a few. And Al, you've got your yellow hand up.
I do. Thank you, John. That was a terrific presentation. Couple questions. The one is, have you looked at the impact of that so-called level 2.5 direct current charging station on battery life in the car?
Yeah, actually, so Decibel is a multi-level inverter. You can charge or discharge at different levels, and it will optimize, your power needs. The thing about batteries is they really don't like to sit stationary for very long. They prefer to be cycled. It actually helps their battery life. As long as you don't cycle them very deeply and charge them 100% fully rapidly all the time. So if you cycle and discharge, charge and discharge in that middle, 20 to 80% range, it's actually good for the battery, and Decibel helps you optimize that. And the DC actually improves that. We have a pure sine wave inverter that really minimizes ripple in the system and helps battery life as well.
And my second question is, what's the status of conversations, if you're allowed to say, with Tesla?
Well, Tesla's sort of like Apple. They kind of like to own the whole ecosystem. So Tesla vehicles, they've stated that they will be bidirectional by 2025. They don't always hit their time frames. So, that remains to be seen. But my suspicion is that it'll be like anything else they do. They'll want to only allow it with their technology. Now we're totally open to working with them, and hopefully, one thing I didn't touch on is California Senate Bill 233, which will require all vehicles be bidirectional by 2035, which is ridiculously late, actually. But it's so far behind the curve, the technological curve. But the other part of that is once that gets into law, and hopefully it will be voted into law this spring. It was put on the shelf last year. It was introduced, and it's going to be reintroduced this spring. But beyond that, what is really important is that somebody comes up with a bill for required interoperability between systems. And that way, any vehicle could connect to any system, such as ours, that will work with any vehicle. And you can do this from anywhere. That'll provide the maximal societal benefit. And so, yeah, so that's a long answer. Tesla doesn't want to play ball with us yet, but they are developing their own system that will be proprietary.
So, where is PG&E in all this? Do they welcome it? We have solar and LG batteries, and we have zero control over what's happening. PG&E and Sunrun, who we bought it from, seem to they won't let us do anything. So. How's that working in all of this? And by the way, let me first say, very impressive, very impressive.
Well, thanks.
Well
Thank you.
done.
I mean, it's a long range vision, but it's what can be possible if they're in the right direction. Thanks. So with PG&E, we're actually participating in a pilot that they're running. So we will be one of the technologies that they will be utilizing, and with Nissan Leafs and I can't say the other one yet. So, but it's a major U.S. manufacturer. Ford is also participating with their Ford Lightnings, I believe. But so, the indications are that they are receptive to and will embrace it. But as I said, I think it's really important that we find a way to help the utilities develop new business models so that they will embrace it and won't see it as a threat. So far, so good as far as them with the pilot, and we'll see how it goes from there, I guess.
But the pilot program will have to make its life cycle before it becomes readily adopted. Is that
not necessarily? Not necessarily, because the FERC 2222 order requires that all utilities allow aggregators to participate in the energy market. So, sorry. So that opens the door to these energy aggregators to develop systems of their own and proposals that the utilities will have to accept.
I have a million more questions, but I grant my time back, as they say.
Yeah. I'll be available later too. Any questions you have?
Kevin looks frozen, so I'm going to call on Bruce.
Well, yeah, John, I've heard, I have my own hope. I'll leave it to myself as to who the other major U.S. manufacturer is. But yeah, I imagine they'll all come around sooner or later, and we would all like them to come around approximately tomorrow. But
Right.
I'm wondering, I've heard kind of both ways on this as to whether existing vehicles, mine is a Chevy Bolt and uses a CCS charging, would be able to be modified. Some people have said just with a software update, but this is what I'm wondering, to be able to have bidirectional capacity if the manufacturer were to allow it.
I think that's going to vary by vehicle. I have an older Nissan Leaf that wasn't bidirectional, but I'm told that with a diode change that it can be and will be. And as a matter of fact, we plan to use it as such. So yeah, a software change and a diode change. Some vehicles might be more difficult than that. I don't really have a good handle on which ones will be retrofittable or not. So unfortunately, a question I can't really answer.
Yeah. Okay. Just thought I'd try. Thank you.
Sure.
John, I'll maybe ask another question that perhaps you won't be able to answer, but since you have been kind of offering a vision for how this looks in the future, I was wondering if you had looked at inclusive utility investment programs, also known as tariff on-bill financing programs through utilities, as a potential model for these integrated systems consisting of all of these different parts. And for those of you who are not familiar with it, the idea in a building's electrification context would be for, let's say you're a lower income resident of a multifamily building. If there was a inclusive utility investment program in place in your jurisdiction, you would be able to initiate an upgrade to an electric heat pump that would save you money over time, and those bill savings would then allow you to pay back that home enhancement project through your utility bill, and you wouldn't have to go through any credit checks. And if you moved out and someone else moved in, that on-bill tariff would go with the residents as opposed to the person who initiated. So it really unleashes a lot of building electrification potential. And because of that slide you shared, where the thing basically pays for itself, it suggests that this, if with a little bit of engineering on the financial side, could be another really good candidate for that type of thing. But I didn't know if you had started to look at that at all.
I have personally. I can't say that we've talked with the utilities about that exactly. But that's, they're going to have to get creative really with these types of things in order, because it's a benefit to them. It's going to reduce their infrastructure costs if they don't have peaker plants anymore and invest in greater transmission infrastructure. They're going to have a lot of funds to be able to incentivize people. And one thing that I think you'll see utilities doing eventually is bundling a lease with an electric vehicle with the agreement to share a portion of that battery with the grid and offering it at a discount to customers. So, yeah, I think it's a phenomenal idea. And man, you should go talk to the utilities directly about it, or to people who have that kind of sway with them. I haven't really gotten into those conversations with our policy staff yet, but it's a really good idea actually for us to start having those conversations. One thing also is that we were awarded a CEC grant, $52 million to provide this technology for lower income homes throughout the state. So we'll be starting to implement in Sonoma County, Sonoma Clean Power Territory first, and other areas. So yeah. But yeah, so they'll, there's an example. That's the CEC putting that money out there, and I'm not sure where the funding comes, but eventually it should be able to come from the savings that the utilities will garner from utilizing these types of systems.
Anyone else have other questions for John?
I could throw one other one in. John, in terms of the amount of power that the decibel can provide on the AC side, is it possible to either gang two of them or to put another inverter that doesn't have all that capability on just to add more to the AC side for a larger building?
Yeah, I think you could easily use two. They could be two separate solar systems that utilize the two inverters. You'd need a larger panel capacity in order to do that, but for a larger building, you would assumedly have that capacity. A 400 amp panel or two 200s or something like that. Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah, we've also got room in the chassis for a third puck that would potentially increase the capacity to 24 kilowatts as well.
Yeah. Okay. Good. And and getting one at this point, that puck, when it becomes available, would then fit into the current first versions of the decibel?
That's a good question, but I'm not entirely certain if it's big enough. We are developing a system that's half the size as well, that's more affordable for smaller systems. So having those three would be, but it's in a smaller box. So I think I can't answer for sure, but there may be room for that third puck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Miles?
Sure.
Yeah. Hey, great presentation, John. Thank you. So for this year, what's your ideal pilot customer? This is such early stage as I see it from my perspective. There's so few cars now that do bidirectional. So are you thinking some workplace kind of scenarios where the business might benefit from this? What is this year? Because we're still waiting on all these cars there. And I will say one little tidbit. I went to LA with this group from Georgia in November, and I think one car was using the bidirectional benefits for the Lightning out of all their customers. I think it was either Southern California Edison or the DW Power Company, but it's one car was benefiting from this. So I'm thinking, what's your thought this year? Because you're ahead of the game.
Right. Yeah. So we're probably most of the early installations will be utilizing Nissan Leafs, which anything 2014 or later is bidirectional.
Yeah.
And they're one of the least expensive EVs on the market. As a matter of fact, I'm about to lease a new one myself, just for that purpose. My 2011 only has 25 kilowatt hour battery. I can't go very far, but yeah. So most of them will be Nissan Leafs and the American manufacturer that I can't speak to just yet, which will open up a lot of vehicles actually. And there are more. We're partnered with Volvo, so all of Volvo's new EVs. I shouldn't say all of their new EVs. I went in to see the EX30 at the dealership when it was available to view, and I said, "I'm so excited! This is going to be bidirectional." And they said, "Well, actually, this won't be." And I'm like, "Why not?" An affordable EV that has bidirectionality will be a game changer, and it should sell like hotcakes. So I'm personally on a mission to try and change their mind on it. We'll see how it goes. But I think this speaks to the importance of this Senate bill passing, SB 233. It's just, once that signal is given to the market, I think you'll see a lot more EVs pretty much all of them coming over. And once they can see that this is what the consumer wants, this is the benefit to the people. Actually, they probably don't care a whole lot about that, but once they can see what the consumer is demanding, I think it's over. And it will take a little time. Hopefully the policy can help that. And the thing you're talking about as far as, Ford being the only one, that's the thing that kind of irks me about the manufacturers. They're going to offer this if they can in their highest end vehicles, and it really isn't, it's not complicated or very expensive to do it. There's no reason they can't do it across the board. So hopefully the bill passes and it's kind of forced in that direction relatively soon.
Interesting. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Any other questions for John? This was really eye-opening. Okay, great. Well, John, thank you so much for your time today and this excellent presentation.
As far as the document goes, I'd be happy to share that with any and all of you. As we electrify, it's like I said, if we don't pre-wire or at least pre-conduit new homes for this technology, they'll basically be stranded assets that cost thousands or tens of thousands later to retrofit. But if you do it right when you build, it's a few $100s.
Yeah, I mean, if you're able to drop a link to that document in the chat, we can grab it and distribute it to interested parties.
Okay.
We have another squad that's focused on EVs, and lots of interest there as well in this.
Great. Yeah, I'll put it in the chat.
You would have no problem, John, with us sharing that document far and wide, like, for example, with our building inspector?
No, I mean, I'm trying to get traction. Even I've presented on it to Bayren, and same thing. Anybody that wants to use this document, it says draft on it. It's designed to be a living document. So as the technologies improve, we can change it. We can add to it. For instance, on the smart panel sides, I think Savant is a new company that has smart breakers. That isn't in the document yet.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, definitely share it. Just tell them it came from me and have them reach out to me, because I'd love to work with anybody and everybody on it.
Yeah, and I'd love to share the recording of this
Great.
talk too. So yeah.
Okay. Yep.
All right. Thank you, John.
You bet.
Great. Well, John, you're welcome to hang out for the rest of our meeting. We're indebted to you for the presentation. And Miles, did you have another question, or is your hand? Okay. I didn't realize I'd be hosting the tail end of this, but Kevin had to jump, so I'm going to do my best to just cruise through the highlighted items in the agenda. First item is communications. I think we got a quick update. The communications item that's highlighted here is kind of in flux. I think there's a notion that there's an opportunity to push out communication newsletters from the county sustainability team to the jurisdictions through the sustainability coordinators and through staff to be included in jurisdiction newsletters. There's also an effort. There are green tips that Green Change produces, and those could be pushed out through similar channels. So that's kind of an ongoing conversation that we'll be coordinating through a couple forums. Does anybody else have any other things that you want to chime in on communications? Okay, jumping to 2.2, I can give a quick update on the school board advocacy work that we're doing with 350 Marin students. We have 3 teams, San Rafael, Novato, and the Tam Union High School District, all working to advocate for school electrification of both buildings and transportation. Anyone who wants to be part of those efforts, we can always use adult allies to support the students. In Novato and San Rafael have actually had reasonable success in cultivating relationships with school board trustees who are willing to be champions, and some of those school board trustees have taken ownership and been proactive and pulled in some facilities folks, and so stuff is moving there. In Tam Union High School District, we might pivot to a bottoms-up approach, starting with facilities managers and chief business officers, because we sensed a little resistance in the school board for a resolution. So we're probably going to pivot and focus more on creating a task force and attacking some low-hanging fruit. On the low-hanging fruit, I put in a call to some consultants at Willdan. They administer a PG&E program that many of our jurisdictions have taken advantage of to replace heat pumps in city and municipal buildings. And it turns out that they have similar programs for schools. So we're going to try to make those connections and get some early wins. So that's kind of an ongoing heavy lift type of project, but fun to work with the youth. So again, if anyone's interested in connecting around that, just reach out to me or to Julia Janeway. Jody, you wanted to mention something on that?
No, not on that. So I have another item that probably falls under this when you're done.
Yeah, dive in.
Okay. I just wanted to mention, I was on 2 webinars this morning. The first one was Electrify Now's on advanced standards for appliances. Very interesting. But there was a speaker on there who was talking about neighborhood electrification. And so for those of us who've been part of the county's roadmap process, that is one of the goals, is to identify a neighborhood and to try to look at electrification across, a whole number of homes. I remember thinking that was kind of a, like, I don't know, just didn't strike me as a good idea when I first read it. But the second webinar I was on was BDC, the Building Decarbonization Coalition. And it was specifically on neighborhood electrification. And it was pretty interesting. There's over 100 projects on target electrification happening. The person on the call was from PG&E. And the previous webinar had mentioned some project of 800 houses that need an upgrade to their gas line anyway. So they're looking at replacing that and trying to electrify, or looking at what's involved in electrifying that. So anyway, I just wanted to mention this particular recording. If you have any interest in neighborhood electrification and want to see what's going on, it was pretty darn interesting. And the webinar is recorded and would be on the BDC website. But they talked about particularly, apparently, this pipeline replacement program that PG&E has for gas pipelines. They have looked at all the disadvantaged neighborhoods in the state of California, and they're trying to evaluate if any of them might be candidates for gas line replacement. They're looking to be sure that it's cost effective, equity is an issue, there's a risk and greenhouse gas reduction benefit in these projects. So it's pretty early, but there's a lot more going on there, and it made a whole lot more sense when I listened to this webinar. So I just wanted to pass on that information and mention it to folks who might be curious. I had asked Brian Reyes about it the other day if he knew any pilot projects, and he said there's a few things going on. There's actually quite a bit going on, though you can't get a lot of information about it yet, but I was impressed with the webinar. Just wanted to mention it.
Jody, are you planning to send the link on to Brian? Because that would certainly be something useful for him to see.
I sent him, I actually sent, the first webinar said, actually, that subject is coming up in 2 minutes at this next webinar. So I quickly registered and sent him the link for the registration and said, here's exactly what I was asking you about. So he has the link, and he may, hopefully he'll go back and get the recording and take a look. But yeah, okay, thanks, great. Al.
Related to that, as part of the work with the school electrification and talking to this consultant at Willdan, he mentioned something interesting that's just useful for this group to be aware of, which is he said that they've worked with a couple municipalities down in the South Bay, and in those municipalities they had outdoor pools. And what he said about those outdoor pools and the heating units that heat those is that they were responsible for 75 to 80% of the carbon footprint of the municipality's direct operations. So that is huge. And replacing a pool heater is not an easy lift. It's fairly expensive, but just as we think about municipalities and their direct emissions, those pool heaters can be outsized. As you know, if you drove past Tam High, that thing's always steaming. And so it's just hours and hours of heat being generated to keep those pools warm. So just something to note as you're dealing with your home, with your jurisdictions. Next item is all electric ordinances. Jody already referenced the countywide building electrification roadmap. David's not here. I did see Ken earlier, but he's not here. So unless anybody has an update on that countywide roadmap, next steps, the calendar sort of thing, we can move on to the next item. Any jurisdictional updates on building electrification stuff? Any feedback in the aftermath of the Ninth Circuit decision? Yeah, Jody.
I just wanted to mention, maybe for John's benefit, if he doesn't know, that Fairfax did pass our bidirectional proclamation, asking or just short of requiring all future cars and capacities systems to be bidirectional if at all possible. So there's a lot of work to go to happen. Thank you very much for everything you're doing. We're trying to do a little bit of it at the grassroots level to get people prepared and knowledgeable a bit about this. So thanks.
Yay. Thanks.
Any other local jurisdiction updates? I have a quick update from Mill Valley. Mill Valley City Council's meeting with the city manager next week for their offsite. And we've been working with them on the climate action plan and identified a series of action items for the 2024 work plan that we've shared directly with council members, the city manager, and the sustainability coordinator. So we're trying to make sure that that these items, which include EV infrastructure, as well as flexible pathway for major remodels for electrification, we're hoping to see those on the work plan and getting done in Mill Valley. John?
Yeah, so I saw my name is listed with the home energy audit. So I'll give you a quick sort of update what I've been up to. Mostly on the research side, but I've gone off and I've talked, first I went through the Resilient Neighborhood Program. Then from there, I went to Quick Carbon and started to talk to them about my house and electrification of it. And then, but they didn't do home energy audits. So then I ended up at Bayren, and I spoke to Emily Alvarez, there, who has been fantastic and is a real fountain of knowledge on this issue. And she referred me over to Kellen Daman, who is in locally here in Marin. So I've sort of gone through this whole food chain of kind of where we're at. My sense of the whole thing is that, and the last piece of the equation, I also talked to the realtor when we moved up here 4 years ago, who's a fantastic woman that we've kept in touch with. And she said the realtors don't really know about any of this. And it makes perfect sense to me as when you buy a house, it's like, what kind of gas mileage does your house get, right? Kind of thing. It makes perfect sense. So long and the short of the whole thing is I've done the research. I'm not quite sure what the next step is to go forward with it. Kathleen, I'm not sure kind of where you ended up. I saw your flyer. I've seen the Bayren flyers, the homeowner toolkit now, which I think is very helpful, that comes out of Marin County, et cetera. Any thoughts, Kathleen, on that?
Well, on the home energy audit, we're mostly just promoting it. We took a look at requiring it, like through a town council.
Like what Berkeley did.
Yeah,
Berkeley and Portland have done it. And
yeah, but when we talked to the county staff, They said that might just be a lot of work, and they raised the opposition issue from.
Yeah, Kellen, that's what Kellen said to me as well.
Yeah, so we are simply trying to do outreach on it and promote it. I'm thinking though, if the people's energy bills continue to go up, it's going to be a huge part of the equation to buying a house. I mean, you have to be able to afford the mortgage and the energy bill.
I agree with
in
you.
California, where it's pretty darn mild here in Marin County, but people still have high bill. So we're open to considering requiring it at some point, but at this point, we're just trying to get the word out. We do public outreach things, through our town newsletter and tabling opportunities, talk to people about the climate, and that's where we are at this time. But it is a huge benefit.
So maybe I could reach out to you separately and we could have a follow-up conversation.
Okay, sure.
That'd be fantastic. Thank you.
I do have a separate little quickie thing, and I gotta go soon because I got another call coming up. But just a thing I wanted to bring up from the point of view of the town of San Anselmo. So we passed this green building code update thing. But if you go out to our town website and you look at the building permit documents, they still refer to the 2019-2020 green building code update, which the town, to its credit, did. Now, I've asked the town staff to let me know if maybe they're waiting for the CEC to approve it. That's possible. But I wanted to know, and I don't want to take the whole rest of the meeting on this, but if anybody has the experience that their town staff has completely provided this information out there, because it supposedly is being enforced. But if it's being enforced, but that the permit form isn't changed, I don't see how they're enforcing it. So I didn't know if anybody else had any experience talking to the town about that.
Anyone have a comment on this particular thing? We didn't implement, so.
Yeah, well, I'm just raising it. You might want to look at your town website and maybe just bring this up in the next month. Maybe we could talk about it next month. We have asked. There is one place on the green building page on our town website that says this ordinance was passed, but there's not all of the documents and the guidance and all of the stuff that the building department has to do hasn't changed. And I realize they're busy, but they did say 30 days after they passed it that it would be enforced. So anyway, just wanting you guys to think about that. We can talk about it next month.
Thank you, Kathleen. Jody?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention to John, some of us in Fairfax have done a little bit of research on energy audits in France and the UK. They are required for renters as well. So when you rent an apartment, you get that information so you can figure out. And there's evidence now too that those, especially in France, there's a great article that if you have a high energy score, you're getting higher prices for your house. So there's documentation of the value of energy audits being required for homeowners and renters in Europe. So we're trying to gather some more info on that kind of stuff, just FYI.
And
Really
Christine?
interesting. Thank you. But also the white paper that Emily sent over on Portland is really interesting as well. Have you seen that one?
I don't think so. If you have a link, I'd love it, or I'll see if I can Google it.
I have it. So
okay,
I can send it to you.
I'll put you have my email. It's in the links.
All right.
Great. Thank you, John.
And Christine?
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't know about the renters, but I do know that in Europe and also in the UK, they do. A friend showed me the energy report on the house she grew up with, which she's just put on the market. It's comprehensive about not just what the house currently burns through in energy, but what its main weaknesses are. And it gives a ballpark of what it would cost to correct those weaknesses, or whether in fact they can't be corrected. So it's just remarkable. And it's kind of shocking we don't have a similar thing here. I think for too long we've paid energy prices that have been subsidized or cheaper than in Europe. And so it hasn't been a priority, but it's a great tool. And I think it's the wave of the future. It's just a question of how quickly it comes.
Yeah, I'll just quickly mention France's program has been in place since 2007. So yeah, we're behind.
Yeah, European Union wide. So, and that also makes it easier for people moving from one country to another as well. So, yeah, it's pretty inspiring. It's just kind of shocking we haven't got there yet.
Great. A couple of other quick updates on Earth Day Mill Valley. It's going to have an event at the community center again. It's going to be scaled back. It's going to be produced and organized by Mill Valley Recreation with support from Green Change. For this group, things to think about: if you've already received an invitation to one of your organizations to participate, it's free to participate. You just have to bring your own table. I would recommend sending in filling out the form as soon as possible. Fabrice and I are meeting with Molly from Mill Valley Rec tomorrow. It sounded like she didn't want to go on to his extended list and do a blast for inviting more orgs to participate. So if you have received a notification about an opportunity to participate, or you want to receive one, let me know. If you've received it, fill it out. We just want to get everybody in that we want there as soon as possible before they kind of shut down new entrants. 350 Marin, Jody, did you want to mention anything with internship ideas?
Well, I can hold off. We've got still some more things to talk about, but I'm generating lots of ideas around school electrification and some other projects. And we're starting to get some requests for internships. We draft our job descriptions essentially, or try to get the paperwork all lined up for March. So we're working quickly, but there's a demand. So that's nice to hear too. And if you have any projects you're thinking, oh, this could really use some summer research, just let me know, and maybe I can add it to the list.
Well, I don't know if this would be appropriate for interns, but it seems like if people in all the jurisdictions knew about electric vehicle fleet status in all the other jurisdictions, just having like a master list of who's done what, it would certainly be helpful. For example, in Mill Valley, to know that, as Sana mentioned, that there's a bunch of EVs in the fleet in Tiburon, for example. And so if we can get that information out to everybody, and possibly consider doing that for electric heat pump water heaters and space heaters in the jurisdictions as well, just showing that this is a thing can create positive energy in our municipalities. So that's just an idea to chew on.
Yeah. No, I'll just mention that we have a new campaign that's coming out that's both helping get people elected, but also trying to track more on what cities are doing what, kind of a report card idea. So it is my plan to have the summer intern work on that a bit, a master spreadsheet of some kind that tells who's done what in what cities, and how people are moving ahead, so we can support each other and get a little competition going. But yeah,
Great.
That's kind of on my list.
Thank you, Jody. Bruce?
Sorry, as that idea of having letting each jurisdiction and everybody know what the jurisdictions are doing, that is kind of in place, but I haven't looked at it for a couple of years, don't know how up to date it is, but MCEP, the Maritime and Energy Partnership, Christine O'Rourke is the analyst there. They did a thing a number of years ago that looked pretty good at the time, I think it was called the Carbon Tracker, but if you you could Google it and find it. It's shows all the Marin jurisdictions and what's going on a number of fronts. And that's a great idea to ask Christine to add the electrification of fleets. But for example, LED streetlights and things like that. There were a number of things that were tracked across the jurisdictions.
Thank you, Bruce. Jody?
Yeah, Bruce, I would just mention, and for others, there's about 5 or 6 things that she's tracking, and all the cities on MSEP on that website. There's all the cities get a score of 1 to 6, so they have to do with what electrification energy programs are in place, et cetera. But yeah, check it out if you haven't. You have to do the drop down for renewable energy programs. As far as I can tell, that's the only one I've seen, and then there's 4 or 5 indicators below that.
Great. Kathleen, do you want to make a call for volunteers for Green Home Tour?
Sure. Yeah, we actually had a meeting today, and there's just 4 people who are involved with this in any way, shape, or form. But Mark with the county, who is limited in his ability to do things because of this role. So we really need other people. And we also, because as everyone knows, the solar industry is going to be struggling this year due to what's going on with rooftop solar and NEM3 in California. They were a fair number of our sponsors, and I'm not sure, I think we're going to have sponsors drop out just because their industries have been hit by changes in the market. So we will be looking for suggested colleagues, suggested new sponsors, maybe in the home electrification concierge space, and volunteers. It's a very short cycle for your life. Fundraising will be March to May, probably, with a little follow-up over the summer, and then there's home selection, and the event is in October. So it's not a sign up for, a death march for it. So let me know if you want to help with any of those things. Volunteer house,
Thank you, Kathleen. Jody, anything to mention about CASC?
The only thing I'd mention, if you don't know, the next meeting is February 8th, starting at 2:30, so it's a little earlier. And Mary Sackett is going to come and tell us a little bit about her role, her and Supervisor Lucan's role with the sustainability team, and how we can support more advisory groups and councils. I know she wants to tell us more about Marin Can as a potential project, but she'll be there for the first 15, 20 minutes if anybody wants to join.
Great. A quick update on Marine Conservation League. So there's, I don't have an update on that first item. I know that the Clean Energy Working Group is working on an advocacy letter to MCE, asking them to develop a process and set of criteria for the use of any surplus funds once reserves are met. And there are a couple of other jurisdictions in the South Bay that we're pointing to as models for that. And the goal is to tie it to the MCE's mission and get the money directed to high leverage programs that will be helpful in meeting emissions reduction goals. Don't think unless anyone else has an update on electric rate reform. I have a quick update on that. My understanding is that Citizens Climate Lobby is working with an assembly member, Maritsuchi, on a bill that would potentially direct some cap and trade money to reducing electric rates for low-income households. And that would potentially help accelerate electrification of buildings and transportation by lowering electric rates. So that bill will be developed, and as soon as that's announced, we'll share out information on that. Anybody want to say anything about the Ninth Circuit, or was that covered last time? Raise your hand if you want to chime in on that. I don't see any other items that are on the agenda that relate to folks who are here. John, yeah, go ahead.
So I just went looking for email addresses, and I don't have, I see that the meeting invite and the agenda are all blind copied. So Jody, I don't know how to reach you. So is there an email list or something somewhere that I might get?
Jody just dropped it in the chat.
Well, I put mine in chat. Some of the emails don't go blind, and I have, I sort of have everybody's from that. But you'd have to ask David. David can always give you, I think, anybody's email who's part of the group if it's an informational exchange like this. But there's mine for now.
Great, I just got it. Thanks.
Yeah, maybe ask Robin instead. I think she handles that.
Okay. Kathleen, you want a copy of this Portland thing as well?
Yes, please.
John, I'll take one too. I'll drop my email in the chat.
You guys are going quick on me.
What's past 5:15? Does anybody else have any items that they wanted to discuss today?
Thanks for stepping in, Al. Good
Yeah.
work.
Thanks. John, do you be able to grab those emails, or should I hang out for a
I
second?
did. I just got them. Thanks.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all. Always a pleasure hearing what everybody's up to, and that was a terrific presentation today. That was really,
It really was.
really amazing.
Very cool.
Thank you all for what you do, and we'll see you all soon.
Bye, everyone.